So I'd like to begin by reiterating that we are on Coast Salish territory today, and I want to thank the Coast Salish peoples for the use of their land and resources, and also extend thanks to Kathy Calamari, who just delivered a really generous presentation about a village and the impact of residential schools. So thanks to her for offering that. So we're going to do a little activity today. And but I first want to begin by identifying some guidelines. We're going to do a little bit of a conversation. So can anybody offer some suggestions of guidelines that you might use to help create a safe space for talking? Just you can just throw them out.
Be respectful.
Be respectful. Yeah. Actively listening to each other. Yeah. Yeah.
Agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree. Thank you. So our guidelines: be respectful, active listening, and agree to disagree. With those things in mind, I'd like you to take a moment and turn to your neighbor and share one thing that you find beautiful about your faith. So choose somebody next to you and take 2 minutes, and I'll bring you back. Thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time to share with one another. Sorry to cut the conversation short. Maybe it's a question that you can continue discussing later on. My name is Danielle Nazarewich, and I am the daughter of my mother, an Irish-Scottish woman, born in Australia, currently a permanent resident in Canada, and the daughter of my father, who's second-generation Ukrainian. I'm a member of the Presbyterian Church of Canada, and I have a Mennonite education. I currently live and work in Abbotsford for Abbotsford Community Services, the main social serving agency in the area with over 7 departments, 300 employees, and 1,000 volunteers. I work in the diversity education office there. Abbotsford has a population of about 130,000 people. Around 24% of them are immigrants. And we have over 75 churches, 4 Sikh temples, a small Hindu temple. We have a Muslim gathering place, 3 Hindu temples. News to me. Thank you, Kusum. We have a Mormon ward, a Buddhist center, an organized Baha'i society, a pagan and Wiccan society, and people who have participated in our events have identified with over 24 different faith groups. So what I want to talk to you about today is our community engagement model of interfaith work. So when we plan events, we start by outreaching. So our staff in the Diversity Education Office have spent lots of time going into the community, going to these places of worship, these centers, using our general networks to meet people and invite them out to a planning table. And so we have representation from all the faith communities that I just mentioned, and we bring them together into a room and invite them to plan an event together, an event that talks about interfaith, where they can share what they believe and hear about what other people believe, and hopefully come to a point of understanding. And so at these planning meetings, we always start with activities. So we ask people a question, like you were just asked to do today. We play games like Interfaith Bingo and discuss questions like, how is food, drink, or shared meals part of your faith? Or how is prayer, intention, or meditation practiced? And does your faith group have a holy book or text or scriptures? What faith practices do you do daily or weekly? And so I've been around for just over a year now, and I've participated and had the privilege of working on 2 interfaith events in Abbotsford. The first one was called, actually the one before I got to participate was called Debunking Myths and Bringing Out Uniqueness and Beauty. And that name was introduced by our planning committee. And we call our whole group Bridges of Faith. And so the two events that I was able to work on, one was called Bridges of Faith Light. And we brought people together to talk about their faith in relation to light. And the way we went about this was with our planning committee. We put together some invitations. They decided the agenda for the event, they decided the location and who would be invited and who would be invited to speak. And so we do pre-registration for our events for the purpose of dividing people into dialogue groups, because as Stephen mentioned, it's common when you get into a room and you're there to do dialogue, you sit with the people you know and the community groups that you know. And so we try to build those bridges by pre-arranging dialogue groups. And one of the ways that we get people to participate is by making it a safe place. And so by getting you guys to identify some guidelines for our room discussion today, that's just one of the ways that we encourage safety in our environments to allow for dialogue. And we have a participation agreement that all of our participants sign before attending our events, and I just want to read it to you. It says, this Bridges of Faith event is an opportunity for diverse people to gain a better understanding of others in their community. All participants are expected to respect the diversity of race, ethnicity, class, gender, family status, sexual orientation, religion, mental and physical ability, age, or political beliefs of other participants and speakers attending the Bridges of Faith event. Participants are asked to refrain from making negative statements regarding one's identity, as well as refrain from converting people of different faiths. If a participant breaks this agreement, they may be asked to leave the event. So that's one of our ways of creating safety, and it's worked really well for us. But what I want to do right now is sort of paint a picture of one of our events. So this past January, our event called Light. Participants entered the room, and they were greeted by members of our planning committee at a welcoming table, and they were given a name tag which identified their dialogue group. And they were also given the opportunity to make a folder of information. And so we had a table set up, and it had pamphlets and brochures and information packages about basic beliefs that our committee members had provided to the event, so that people could get to know and have just a basic understanding of what the different people in the room believed. So they collected these pamphlets, and there's theater-style seating in the middle of the room, sort of like this. And we had 6 presenters. And so at the front of the room, we had 3 tables and a screen. And so we began the evening, and people were sitting wherever they chose in the most comfortable spot. And first we heard from our Hindu representatives. Kusum presented and shared about her basic beliefs in relation to light. We heard from a Christian pastor in the community, and we heard from a Muslim imam. And they used multimedia to share their beliefs with everyone. We took a pause and we shared some refreshments together, and it was a nice long break. It was a nice half-hour break where networking could take place. And then we pulled everybody back together, and we actually had them sit back in the same seats, but turn them around and face the other side of the room, where we had another screen and 3 more presenters with tables set up. And we had a Baha'i presenter and a Buddhist presenter and a Sikh presenter, and they were all given the opportunity to share about their faith with one another. And then the event sort of culminated with a time for dialogue. And what we had done before this event was we had trained all our planning committee members in dialogue hosting. And so they were the leaders of all the dialogue groups, which were pre-arranged based on pre-registration. So everybody split up into small groups, and the planning committee members hosted a discussion with the questions that they had created, that they had wanted everybody to talk about. And that was definitely the most fruitful part of the evening. And so I guess I want to talk a little bit about impact as well. A number of people always give wonderful feedback, but one story in particular a friend of mine who I had grown up with, who had actually attended a private Bible college with, came to this event. And it was the first time in his life that he had met a Wiccan person and a Baha'i person, and was able to have a conversation with them. And he told me, he said, this event renewed my hope for humanity, because I didn't know that peaceful conversations like this existed. And so that's that's one of the main impacts, one of the main reasons why we keep doing interfaith work in Abbotsford. So that's what I had to share. So I guess it's time for questions and answers.
Do you have any questions from the floor?
When you're talking about faith, and I responded right away, the largest growing section is the people that do not have, they are spiritual, but they do not have an institution or word faith behind it.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious whether you included non-denominational spirituality in the conversation.
Definitely, but our outreach obviously looks different because there's not a building we go to, there's not a contact person that we go to, right? So the way we try to engage those groups is by just like public awareness. So posting in the newspaper that events are happening, and generally sharing with our networks, with our professional networks, with our private friends. Putting flyers up in public libraries, in public places where people go and gather, and word of mouth is a really big thing.
My question would be more, would they be included as part of the conversation?
Oh.
You mentioned Baha'i, there was
Yeah.
Hindu, and would you have a special speaker presentation on that?
Yeah, if definitely, if there is interest in presenting, for sure, yeah. So we have had people that don't identify with a faith group on our planning committee, for sure, and they've offered their input, and yeah, definitely, yeah. Yes.
Have you had to deal with, I guess we'd call it sort of sectarian divergence within a particular faith community? I'm in the Comox Valley, we have at least 5 different brands of Wiccan pagan, faith communities. We have 3 very, very small, but not really speaking to each other, Jewish communities. We have a minuscule Muslim community, but it has at least 2 sides to it. Have you? And the Aboriginal spiritual community is quite diverse, because we have a huge number of Canadian Aboriginal First Nations and British Columbia First Nations communities, as well as Inuit. So
yeah.
within group sectarianism.
Definitely, yeah. So our planning committee has noticed that and identified that happens. And what they've decided to do, like after one event, they recognized who presented, and they decided as a group, we want people from different groups to present, and we want just different representation. So if at one event we have our Dorji Tang Buddhist present, at our next event, the Buddhists decided themselves, they're like, how about a different sect take a turn? So that's generally, we haven't had conflict in those situations, but there's a lot of willingness to share and open the floor up for those kinds of things, and we do as best we can as facilitators to give opportunity for different opinions. And so I understand, sometimes you can have a Christian presenter, but what does that mean? Are they Presbyterian? Are they Mennonite? Are they Anglican, right? There's a lot of different representation in a lot of different organizations. So we try our best to recognize those and to give as many people opportunity to share as possible. Yeah. And also recognize that speakers and participants represent their own views. So the Christian presenter is representing their own personal views, not all of Christianity.